Polls.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And we thank you for being here, Barnaby.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling something that, well, frankly, keeps a lot of property owners up at night.
That moment you decide to raise the rent.
Exactly. Suddenly, you're not just managing property, you're walking this legal tightrope.
Yeah, that's really the core takeaway from the materials we looked at. The second you become a landlord, the laws kick in hard. We're talking Fair Housing Act, state codes, and they really don't care about your intentions, good or bad.
Right. No, oops, I didn't know, defense in court.
None at all. Ignorance just doesn't fly.
So our mission today really is to give you a shortcut. We've dug into the sources to pinpoint where owners, even experienced ones, tend to slip up on compliance.
Especially around housing law and the whole process of raising rents.
So you could do it legally, protect your investment, your equity, and crucially, stay out of that courtroom. Avoid that whole walk of shame, right?
Think of this as maybe your playbook, your guide to staying profitable and compliant. Okay, let's dive in. First things first, the foundation. The absolute non-negotiable part of all this is fair housing. The Fair Housing Act, or FHA, it really is the backbone of tenant protection.
And it applies everywhere, right? Doesn't matter if you have one rental house or a massive apartment complex.
Exactly. High-rise, mobile home park, single-family home, it covers them all.
So where does it start? What are the absolute must-knows?
It starts with the protected classes.
Yeah.
Federally, there are 7 you absolutely have to know. You cannot treat applicants or tenants differently based on these.
Okay, lay them out for us.
Race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, and familial status. That last one means families with children under 18.
That's the federal baseline. But it gets more complicated, doesn't it? State and local laws add more.
Oh, absolutely. That's the legal layer cake you mentioned. The feds set the floor, but states, counties, even cities often add more protections.
Like what kind of things?
Well, you see things like age being protected, source of income, that's a big one, impacts things like Section 8 vouchers, sexual orientation, gender identity, veteran status. It varies a lot by location.
So checking your specific local laws is critical.
Absolutely non-negotiable. The core takeaway here for you as the owner is about systematic consistency.
Meaning?
Meaning you treat everyone the same. In your advertising, how you talk to people, your written policies, your lease agreements, everything.
And the sources had a pretty stark warning about proof, right? Something about emails.
Yeah, that one definitely stands out. Discrimination isn't just about what you say out loud. It can be proven by, and this is almost word for word, what your email metadata can prove.
Whoa, okay. Let's unpack that. Metadata. How does that work? Are they prosecuting thoughts now?
Well, sort of. It's about the trail you leave. It documents your process, maybe even your intent.
So give me an example.
Okay, say a qualified applicant applies, but they belong to a protected class. Maybe you hesitate. The source described a case where an owner emailed their manager saying something like, let's hold off on this one, see if someone more suitable applies.
Ouch.
Internally.
But that email, the timestamp, the instruction to delay that became evidence. It showed intent to discriminate against an otherwise qualified person by delaying their application. The court saw that internal chat as proof.
That's a huge vulnerability. It means you don't even need to be overtly malicious.
Yeah.
Just being inconsistent can land you in serious trouble.
Exactly. That inconsistency is the evidence, often of selective enforcement. The sources we read listed a bunch of common ways owners trip up, often without realizing they're breaking the law.
Things that seem minor, maybe.
Sometimes, yeah, like waiving a late fee for one tenant because, you feel bad for them, they're having a tough time.
Okay.
But then 2 months later, another tenant asks for the same break and you say no.
So the inconsistency is the problem.
Right. Or maybe you have park rules, about noise or where people can park, tidiness, whatever, and you only seem to enforce them against certain tenants, the ones you maybe find annoying.
That's selective enforcement. And that's illegal if it correlates with a protected class, even unintentionally.
Precisely. The temptation, especially if you own just a few properties, is to be, well, nice or flexible.
Subjective kindness, right? Like helping out Mrs. Smith with that late fee because her husband's sick.
Yeah.
You're saying that act of kindness could actually be a legal landmine.
It really can be. Because the law isn't about subjective fairness, it's about objective consistency.
Yeah.
Once you waive that fee for Mrs. Smith, you've set a precedent.
So the next tenant you say no to?
They can point to Mrs. Smith and say, hey, you waived it for her, why not for me? And if that tenant happens to be, say, elderly or disabled or a part of any protected group, they can argue you're treating tenants differently based on potentially illegal reasons. Her waiver becomes their ammunition.
Wow. Okay. And this crops up early too, right, during applications, especially around families.
Oh yeah, familial status protection families with kids under 18, that's a common tripwire.
How so?
Setting occupancy limits too strictly, like saying only 2 people can live in a 2-bedroom apartment, that effectively rules out a couple with 1 child.
Which is discrimination based on familial status.
Correct. Or having rules that restrict kids from using common areas, like a pool or a playground, during certain hours just because they're kids. You can have general safety rules, but they can't target children specifically.
And asking certain questions during showings?
Big no-no. Asking, how many kids do you have, or are you planning on having children? Definitely out of bounds. Your focus has to be on the total number of occupants based on square footage and local codes, applied equally to everyone, single people, couples, families.
Okay. So fair housing is about who you treat the same. But then there's this whole other layer about how you operate, especially with rent increases.
Right. Federal law sets that baseline, but state and local laws often add way more restrictions. They raise the ceiling, so to speak.
This is where knowing only federal law can really bite you.
Definitely. You have to know your specific state, county, and city rules. For instance, some states, California, Oregon, New York, are big examples, have statewide rent control or rent stabilization laws.
Meaning actual caps on how much you can raise the rent each year?
Yeah, often tied to something like the Consumer Price Index plus a fixed percentage. So in those places, your ability to raise rents to market rates might be significantly limited by law right from the start.
And even in states without those hard caps, there are often strict rules about notice periods, right?
Absolutely. That's a huge trap. The sources highlighted this. If you raise the rent over a certain percentage, often it's around 5%, but it varies, you might be required to give much longer notice, not just 30 days.
Could be 60 days, maybe even 90 days, depending on the local rules and the size of the increase. You have to check.
And there was a nuance there, too, linking back to protected classes.
Yes. Some places require you to provide a specific justification if you're implementing a really substantial rent hike on certain tenants, like seniors or maybe very long-term residents.
Why is that? It's generally aimed at preventing landlords from using huge rent increases as a weapon, basically. Not to meet market rates, but just to push a tenant out without formally evicting them.
Which leads us right into another trap. Constructive eviction. Sounds sneaky.
It is, because the landlord often doesn't see it coming as a lawsuit.
So what is it exactly?
Constructive eviction happens when you don't actually go through the legal eviction process, but you make the living conditions so bad, so unbearable, that the tenant basically has no choice but to leave.
So it's about habitability.
Precisely. It hinges on the implied warranty of habitability, the landlord's duty to keep the property livable.
So if I know the roof leaks constantly, or the heat is always broken in winter, or there's a serious mold problem,
Or the plumbing keeps backing up, or there's a major pest infestation you don't address.
and I kind of drag my feet on fixing it, maybe because I don't like the tenant and secretly hope they'll just give up and move.
That foot dragging could be legally interpreted as constructive eviction. Even if your stated goal isn't eviction, if your neglect makes the place unlivable, a court can see it as forcing the tenant out.
And that just blows up any rent increase plan you might have had completely. The sources were really blunt. You can't raise rent by lowering habitability. Doing that is basically inviting a massive lawsuit where you could end up paying damages way beyond just losing the rent. Okay, so assuming the property is well maintained, let's get to the actual rent increase notice. This is part 5, the real tightrope walk.
Yeah, the math part, figuring out the new rent amount, that's usually easy. It's the procedure, the communication, where things get incredibly tricky.
So what are the absolute must-haves for legal enforceable rent increase notice? The sources broke it down, right? Yep. 3 key elements. First, proper notice period. You have to know your state and local statute. Is it 30 days, 60, 90? Does it count calendar days or business days? Get it wrong, and the whole thing can be invalid. Okay, number 1, notice period. What's 2?
Written delivery. This is crucial. It can't be a casual chat, a voicemail, or a text message. It needs to be a formal written notice delivered according to the method specified in the lease or by state law, often certified mail or personal delivery. You need proof.
Got it. Written, provable delivery. And third,
Equal application. This loops back to fair housing. The increase needs to be applied consistently to tenants in similar units. You can't single someone out for a bigger increase or exempt someone else in a way that could look discriminatory.
The sources had a really specific, almost painful example about getting the timing wrong on delivery.
Oh yeah, that's a bureaucratic nightmare scenario, but it happens. Imagine your state requires exactly 30 days notice before the rent increase takes effect.
Okay.
You send the notice via regular mail. Mail takes a bit longer than expected, maybe there's a weekend in there, and it arrives 2 days late. So the tenant technically only got 28 days notice.
What happens then?
The entire rent increase is potentially void, thrown out. You can't collect the higher amount. You might have to wait until the next rental period, issue a new notice, wait the full 30, 60, whatever days again.
That's not just a mistake.
Right.
That's lost revenue for months.
Exactly. It's a cash flow killer. And it makes you look unprofessional, maybe even predatory, even if it was just a simple mailing delay. The law cares about the letter of the law, not your intentions or effort.
So raising rent legally really is about nailing the communication, the process, the documentation, being meticulous.
Absolutely. Now let's shift gears a bit. Think longer term, proactive compliance. Because eventually you might want to sell this property, right?
Yeah, exit strategy is always part of the plan.
Well, compliance isn't just about dodging lawsuits today. It's fundamentally about protecting your equity for that future sale.
How does local government play into that beyond FHA? You mentioned permits earlier.
Right. Many cities and counties have their own requirements, especially for multifamily properties. Things like annual operating permits, making sure you're compliant with zoning, occupancy limits, maybe utility inspections.
And if those aren't up to date?
Big problem for a buyer. If you have lapsed permits or outstanding code violations, maybe from a failed inspection you never fixed that shows up during the buyer's due diligence.
And the buyer's lender sees that.
You bet. Lenders scrutinize local compliance heavily. Unresolved code violations, expired permits, those are huge red flags. They signal risk. The lender might delay closing, demand repairs before funding, or even deny the loan altogether.
Because they're worried they're financing a property that comes with built-in legal problems or repair costs.
Exactly. You absolutely have to clear up any code issues before you list the property for sale.
So the sources recommended doing a kind of fair housing tune-up before selling. What does that look like in practice?
It's basically an internal audit. Pull out all your current leases, your community rules, your standard forms. Read them with a critical eye. Is there any language in there, even old boilerplate stuff, that could be seen as discriminatory or out of date?
Get rid of it.
Get rid of it, then standardize everything. Your late fee policy, how you handle rule violations, your screening criteria for new tenants. Make it consistent, objective, almost robotic.
Document that consistency.
Crucial. Train your managers, if you have them, on exactly how to handle notices, keep records, communicate with tenants. Everything needs to be documented properly. Dates, delivery methods, copies.
And then package it.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the smartest things the source had suggested. Create a simple, organized compliance binder.
Yeah.
Put copies of your standardized lease, your rules, maybe proof of recent inspections or permit renewals in there. Why? What does that do for a buyer?
It screams professionalism. It shows you run a tight ship. It reduces the buyer's perceived risk and saves them time during due diligence. That builds trust, and buyers will often pay a premium for a property that looks clean and well managed from a legal standpoint.
Because the flip side, being non-compliant, is just terrible marketing. It's what one source called the worst marketing plan. Think about it. If a fair housing complaint is filed with HUD, it often becomes public record, searchable by anyone.
Searchable by potential buyers, their lenders, brokers, everyone. Even if you settle it quietly, that complaint can attach itself to the property's history, like a bad Yelp review you can't delete.
It damages the asset's reputation.
Deeply. You can usually fix a problem with the rent roll. Maybe rents are below market. You just need a strategy to raise them. That's recoverable. But your reputation, especially after a public discrimination claim, you can't easily fix that. Compliance isn't just following rules, it's active equity protection.
So the big picture here is pretty clear. Compliance isn't some bureaucratic enemy trying to stifle your business.
No, it's the operating manual. It's the guide to staying profitable, staying protected, and being ready for whatever comes next, including selling.
Learn the rules, follow the procedures down to the letter, document everything, and hopefully you'll never find yourself explaining things to a judge.
Which brings us to a final thought, something for you, the listener, to really mull over.
Okay, what is it?
We've talked about how proving clean legal compliance can actually add value, make your property worth more to a buyer. So flip that around. What's one specific document in your files right now? Maybe it's your standard lease addendum about pets versus service animals, or maybe it's your list of community rules that you could review and update today.
Something you could standardize and start enforcing consistently immediately.
Exactly. What's one small step you can take today to tighten up your compliance, reduce your legal exposure down the road, and ultimately make your investment more valuable? Auditing your own paperwork might just be the cheapest insurance policy you can buy.